which has 3 engines, and the other aircraft that we operate is the Falcon 2000. That has 2 engines. Even though this one had...
Go ahead and watch your step on your way up here. I'll have you guys follow me. And we'll come this way initially. Come on in, feel free to spread out and grab a seat anywhere. Just watch what you have in your pockets or bags. Come on up. So you're going to actually grab here and then bring your right leg over and put it all the way on the right side. So this is the business end of things. So we've got our main flight controls, we've got our throttles here, engine 1, 2, and 3. We've got our 2 main flight displays here and here. Then we've got a map which gives us a map of the entire world in our database. Right now it's defaulted as you put power on the airplane, it shows up in France. Since it's a French airplane, they initially have it show up in France until you actually give it a position and say, okay, I'm actually right here. Down here we've got our systems monitoring page. Actually monitored all the different systems that we need with the airplane. We've got a kind of a general status of the airplane here, and then we can go to our engines page, which gives us an expanded perspective of what we're seeing here. We can look at the electrical systems. We've got the 2 aircraft batteries, and then we've got 1, 2, 3 generators. Then we go to our fuel page, and we can see the quantity of the fuel in each of the individual fuel tanks, temperature of the fuel, and things like that. Our hydraulic systems, which this airplane uses hydraulic pressure, basically oil pressure, to move the flight controls, to help us move the flight controls. So it gives us an assist so that we don't have to use physical force as much. And then this is the environmental control system, so the pressurization for the airplane. We fly at very high altitudes. You can't breathe at the high altitudes very easily. You end up passing out. So the airplanes are all pressurized so that your body feels like it's at a low altitude. So when you're flying up at 40,000 feet, inside the cabin, we feel like we're at 7,000 feet. So we're able to breathe. And then if you lose cabin pressure, just like the airplanes, the airliners, have you been on an airliner much? Yeah, the masks come down, and we can do all that stuff too. And
does this plane have flaps?
Hot air from the engines to keep the wing protected from icing and things like that in bad weather conditions. And then all the gauges over here, you know, I've got other safety gear and all other kind of monitoring controls. This airplane, both of our airplanes are equipped with a heads-up display, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a fighter plane a little bit. So you can actually see there if you pop your head over there. And the corporate side was particularly attractive for me. I liked the airplanes, and I liked the schedule, and I really it's been a great choice for me. Yeah, I've been able to not had to commute to work to and from a lot, and been able to live where I've been based, and we do get to do a lot of fun trips. So we get to go to Europe, and then you get to kind of sightsee a little bit, because usually you have a day or two when you get where you're going to either rest or because they have some business to take care of there. So you're able to see a little bit more of the world than maybe the airport sometimes.
So for private, do you have a flexible schedule, or is it?
You can have a very flexible schedule. Sometimes you have a little bit of on call because they're may need the airplane to go for some reason, maybe a little bit shorter notice. We don't do a lot of that type of work, which is very nice. Depending on the individual situation, it can vary. Yeah. So if you generally, the bigger the corporate airplane like this, the longer you're going to be away from time to time. They kind of bigger airplane, bigger suitcase, they say.
And I was going to ask you that. So if you...
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, now this is the outside of the airplane. But I want to take a guess what this device is up front, right in the front of the airplane, right? So it's weather radar, okay? So that dish, that device, will actually send out radio waves, and those radio waves will bounce off water droplets inside in the air, right? And the amount of radio waves that are returned from those water droplets, the amount of radio waves that are returned to that device will paint a picture on those avionics, on those screens that you saw up front. It'll paint a picture of the storm on that screen. And judging by the colors on that picture, the pilots will be able to determine how dense or how bad that weather is right in front of them, and they can steer around it. They can get around that weather. Because we don't want to be flying this airplane through hail. We really don't want to be flying it through hail. We don't want it to get struck by lightning. So we avoid weather. And of course, we don't want to bang the airplane around in a whole bunch of turbulence or get caught in the downdraft, whereas you're dropping thousands of feet in a matter of seconds. Definitely, that's why we avoid weather. Weather and airplanes don't get along, so that's why we try to avoid it.
What's the effective range on that?
I think it goes about 20 miles out, 20 to 50 miles out. It's not very far. So this airplane, actually both airplanes have an XM weather system installed in it. So they'll actually get satellite weather updates and satellite images of rain cells moving through the area, displayed on their screens at the same time. This is kind of a backup system because it doesn't show the weather all around the airplane. It just shows the weather in front. And they need to have full situational awareness and see the weather all around the airplane. So we'll keep continuing on here a little bit. So this device here, this big box with kind of the gold colored connections on it, is what's called a modular avionics unit. In each side, inside this box, each of these connectors, these giant connectors, are a computer, a separate computer, right? And linked together. All of these computers have a different function, and yet all the computers are talking to each other all the time. There's an identical box to this underneath the floor of the airplane, inside the pressure vessel, so it's pressurized underneath the floor. Right when you step up into the airplane, under the floor is an identical box, just like this, inside the airplane. Why do you think we have two of everything? Why do you think we have a second box? Redundancy. Good, very good. So, if you lose an entire MAU, if you're losing this entire cabin, it takes a crack. You lose it, right? You have a second one inside the airplane ready to pick up right now. In addition to that, you've also, a lot of these systems, inside the cards are separate channels, right? So one channel is monitoring and the other channel is in control. If the channel in control fails for some reason, the channel monitoring will say, oh, you're not acting right, there's something wrong inside your card, I now have control, and then that trips a fault and displays up in the cockpit. And then the pilots will report back to me, hey, we had a fault on this computer at this time, at this altitude, at this airspeed, and now it's up to me to troubleshoot, hey, what's going on inside that computer, and what component do I have to replace to get the airplane back operating the way it's supposed to be again, right? Other things, I mean, we've got a radio cabin here. This is the brains of the radio system, so the communications between the airplane and the ground. There's also a transponder in there, so it gives the airplane information to the air traffic controllers here on the ground. So this is without this box, and again, we have a second one inside the airplane. There's two of these guys, two of these guys, two of everything, it seems like. Unless the system is non-critical, like cabin Wi-Fi. We only have one of those boxes. Because if we lose cabin Wi-Fi, the plane can keep flying along. The passengers are going to get a little upset, but we don't need cabin Wi-Fi to keep the airplane flying. We need a lot of those avionics to keep the airplane flying. So, come on around, I'll show you the engine here a little bit. So this is what I was talking about short corners and sharp edges. Underneath this cover is, does anybody know the name of that guy coming off the trailing edge of the wing? Anyone?
Static wing.
This airplane has them too. You can see them kind of hanging off. You had it.
Static wing.
That's a static wing. Very good. So this is a carbon fiber static wing, and whereas the one hanging off the 172 gear, this is more or less just a fabric one. It's not nearly as stiff, right? These are pretty stiff. These can do some damage. If you walk into the backside of that thing, you're going to poke a hole in yourself. So pretty cool stuff. And without these, radio communication would be very difficult. So we'll keep going around here to the engine. Watch your head here on the trailing edge of the wing. So there's all sorts of external components, and I say external, even though this looks like the inside of an engine. You can come around, step around. We won't get dripped down with fuel or anything like that. I keep my engines very clean and very tight. So this is all the outside of the engine. These are all what's called accessories, right? So the magic of the engine, the actual thrust comes from inside the engine. This brown kind of duct that you see kind of here, that is the bypass duct of the engine. So the majority of the air, almost 85% of the air going through the engine, going into the intake, isn't actually being used for combustion. About 85% is going around that combustion cycle. It's being used for thrust only. Back in the 70s, you had turbojet engines, whereas all the air that went into the intake was being burned. It was being used for combustion. The engines were noisy, they were dirty, they used a lot of fuel, and they were extremely inefficient. So with technology, we've developed turbofan engines that uses a fan to blow that air, and that bypass air is not used for combustion, but we get a huge amount of thrust from that bypass air. We've got fuel controls. This is where, when the pilots move the throttle control levers up in the front, right? When they call for more thrust, more power, they push the throttle forward, right? That moves the cable inside this Teleflex and tells the fuel control, hey, I need more power, put more gas to the burner can, the pressures increase inside the engine, the heat increases, you get more thrust, just like that. It is a mechanical connection. Unlike the Falcon 2000, that aircraft has what's called a FADEC, a full authority digital engine control, whereas there is no mechanical connection between the throttle quadrant, where your throttle levers are. There's no mechanical connection, it's only wires. So a big wire bundle, I'm kind of point one out here, a big wire bundle will tell the engine, hey, I need more power, this is where the throttles are at, make it happen. Whereas this airplane has a mechanical connection. Starter generator, that's what starts the magic happening right there. This is a small hydraulic pump. Well, I say small, but that is one of the primary hydraulic pumps. Look at the size of that thing. That small hydraulic pump will develop 3,000 psi worth of hydraulic pressure to use to move control surfaces, deploy your thrust reverser on the back. For brakes, when they land, they need hydraulic pressure to actuate the brakes and slow the airplane down. And this hydraulic pump is what makes that happen. So, any questions? Cool. We're getting pretty close to our air traffic control tour time, so you can take a quick peek in the baggage compartment. Yeah, so go ahead and stand up there and take a look. We've got all sorts of different components. We've got everything from fire extinguishing bottles up there. You can see how complicated it is up there. Fire extinguishing bottles, we've got hydraulic lights everywhere. Take a look, we've got these little orange boxes. What do you think those orange boxes are?
The cockpit voice recorder, flight game recorder.
Bingo, very good, very good. So when you hear after an airplane accident, say a crash, right, so they're looking for those boxes because they want to know what happened with their cars. They want to know what happened, what was wrong, and hey, do we have a system-wide program or a system-wide concern that we have to fix right now, like the Boeing 737s. That was the first component that they were looking for in those accidents because they had to figure out real quick that they had a serious problem, and they ended up grounding the fleet, and they're still grounded. So, baggage compartment, you can fit as many bags of golf clubs and as many pairs of skis as you want. Of course, all the luggage that we haul back and forth, and it can get pretty full back there. And as you can see, it's got a door on the front side of it, so that door will actually go into the lavatory, the bathroom of the airplane. And say you forgot an iPad in your bag, and your bag's in the back of the airplane. Well, with a walk-through baggage compartment like that, I can walk through that door, rummage through my bag, and get my iPad for the flight, right? Commercial airplane can't necessarily do that because it's all under